Welcome to today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. We find ourselves caught between the reality of being the all that is, of being an individualized expression of total source consciousness, while still dealing with the meager scarcities of ego limitation, all housed within a meat suit. We're going to talk about it. Thank you for joining me for today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. My name is Lucien Francois Mateo St. James. I am a spiritual epidemiologist, and thank you so much for co-creating this moment with me. I am here to encourage you in knowing with empowered conviction the truth of your transcendent divinity. Let's take it to Neville Goddard, one of the founding fathers of universalizing this esoteric occult knowledge. Of course, if you go back to Jewish mystic traditions and Christian mystic traditions and all the way back to time, basically, as long as there's been a written word, there's been an understanding of what Jesus was trying to say, and even prior to, beyond that, or Yeshua, there's been an understanding that we create reality with the attention and focus of our awareness, and how to tune that with intention so we can stop being thrown all about by circumstance and indoctrination. Long before Neville Goddard was there knowledge and realization of this. However, Neville brought it to the public eye, brought it to all of us so we don't have to join weird cults and go into caves and wear hoods and do strange stuff with strange people. So thank you, Neville, for that life-changing Neville Goddard quote for me. And I mean, all of his stuff is, to even just dip your toe in Neville Goddard, you will come away with something transformative. But my personal favorite quote is, "For life makes no mistakes and always gives man that which man first gives himself." Isn't that life? Isn't that lovely? That's life. That's so lovely. So you're only going to get what you already have. You will only get what you already have. Isn't that fantastic? So what does that mean? That means, and this goes to that quote in the Bible as well, that whoever doesn't have, for more will be taken, or something like that. I quoted that a few episodes ago, a few transmissions ago. I still haven't looked up what specifically that quote is. If you know what I'm talking about, drop it in the comments. That, for who has more will be given, and for who has not so much, we're going to take that away too. And I always thought that was so bogus as a kid, because I was like, okay, so if you're born poor, you're just going to be poor for the rest of ever. And really, yes, in a sense, because your parents then would have had to have given themselves, and their parents, it just really kind of continues. They were all programmed. I mean, there is no way to escape childhood without receiving a series and set of ideas up until the age of 7, up until the age of 8. I mean, I've seen that your brain is living in like subconscious, spongy, absorbent, theta wave, I take it all inland, up until age 7 is the statistic there. But even particularly, more importantly, between ages like 0 and 3, you already have collected so many ideas about who you are, how the world works, how other people are going to treat you. You learn how to treat yourself based on how your parents treat you. And your estimations as to what's going to happen by age 7, which means unless you're maybe the 1% of human beings that comes from a decent family, you're fucked. That's what that means, is that you're fucked. So what do we do about that? Because if you've acquired the geopolitical indoctrinations, the church indoctrinations, which tell you in a various set of ways, regardless if you're Baptist or Lutheran or Catholic, or, I don't really know too much about Islam. I have studied a bit of Jewish tradition, But the takeaway being from religious indoctrination being that there's a God outside of you, and that God, I never understood this, is the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is in me, but I'm not divine. Never made a lick of sense to me. But you get religious indoctrination that says all the good that you seek, all the completion, the total, it's in some faraway distant place that you have to die to get to. There's limitation, there's lack, there's scarcity. The specifics of your family dynamic are going to have a part to play with the personality adaptations that you take on as you become an adult and figure out who you are. Or maybe you never figure out who you are because you've been through so much trauma. You're living through these sense of fragmented self that are painted by negative emotion. So then what? So then what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like, what are you giving yourself then at that point in time, where you're giving yourself, if this is all gone unexamined, the past? You're giving yourself your parents' belief systems. You're giving yourself your conditioning regionally, nationally, racially, ethnically, societally, on a basis of gender, on a basis of sex, all of these shoulds. And then, you're 20, you're 25, you're on forward, and you're wondering, why does my life feel like shit? Either I did all the things I thought I was supposed to do, or I didn't do any of those things because I didn't think they were right, or I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing nothing. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm collecting a check. I'm eating Cheetos. I hate everything. What am I supposed to do? Well, first you have to understand your level of indoctrination, what you've been indoctrinated with, what your predominant belief systems are. You have to go through an audit. Go watch the video I posted earlier this week on auditing. So you need to audit what is already there, essentially. We have to take a survey of the fucking land of your mind. And then you have to become the source of that which you desire. If you attempt to manifest wealth, yet you continue to find that your bank accounts, that your relationships, that your state of work, that your state of self is impoverished, it is because you have been indoctrinated with poverty conditioning unconsciously. And because it was done unconsciously, you've continued to choose the emotional states, the thoughts, the belief systems, and the identity attachments that are conclusive from that state of indoctrination, of poverty early on, of impoverishment. So you have to look at who you think you are. I mean, if you are, I want to manifest wealth, I want to manifest a certain amount of dollars, then what type of freedom would that amount of dollars give you? What type of experience would that amount of dollars give you? What type of understanding about yourself and the world? You probably would see the world as a lot safer than you do if you had X amount of dollars. Without the X amount of dollars, you might have a general sense of danger, of fear, of anxiety, of thinking anything could happen at any time and you're totally unprotected. It's not that money physically protects you from all things that can happen, but you would probably feel taken care of. You would probably feel like you were covered. You would probably feel that no matter what, things are going to be okay. That even if the very worst case scenario happened, you would be able to recover from it if you had said finances. It would create a sense of safety. Okay, well, if money equals safety and freedom, then in order to become an alignment, to generate an emotionally resonant field, because it's not just the thoughts. I mean, yes, the thoughts are good, and you do have to then, I realized in my journey, as I was doing my own auditing several years ago, I realized that while I wanted wealth, I had never actually affirmed it for myself. I had never actually believed that that was possible for me. So yeah, I was like doing the scripting and doing the tips and doing the tricks, and somehow that was all like still so separate in my head about, I still didn't really believe that it could be me. I was like waiting for the 3D, which is where a lot of people find themselves. I was like waiting for the 3D to give me something I didn't have myself. So I didn't have the experience of wealth. I had all of the years of indoctrination, of impoverishment, yet I was expecting the 3D. But you know what the universe does? It will only give you what you already have. So what I already had was an idea of impoverishment, which meant I was in lack, which meant I was in separation. I never even actually seen it as possible for myself. But how would you feel if you had that which you desire? How would you feel, and what would you be thinking, and what would your belief systems be about yourself? What would you see as possible? What would it mean to sit in that state of self? If having X amount of dollars would allow you to access safety, freedom, gratitude, joy, or maybe just ease. And those would be the emotionally resonant aspects of wealth. And then there's the thoughts that I am wealthy, I am joy, I am freedom, I am abundance. Everything in my life is taken care of. Everything is always working out for me. Every day is getting better and better. I love my life. I feel safe. I feel protected. I know I'm divinely guided. I know, regardless of what circumstance shows me, everything always works out. I love myself. I accept myself. Every day I see a better version of me. Every day I see everything I've ever desired. I mean, those are the thoughts, right? Yes. Listen to robotic affirmations if you're into that. I am. They've been incredibly helpful for me, especially on the more creative end of what those affirmations can sound like. Yes, but even in listening to them, it's not just about listening to them and having them program you, which can be helpful because every time you listen to music, you're being programmed. Every time you listen to the news, you're being programmed. Every time you listen to somebody's negative report about whatever negative shit they've got going on, you're being programmed. Everything you hear is programming you. It's becoming a part of your field. However, it's not that every single one of those things manifests, because it needs to be something you've accepted as truth for yourself, truth of your world, meaning knowledge. And not knowledge of, because what we believe to be knowledge is really us just selecting a tuned frequency. It's just us turning the dial, because what's available to us as divinity incarnate creatures is everything. But our awareness tunes a focus to a specific outcome, frequency, set of circumstances. Everything's available, but if we're tuned to nothing works out, we will see the multitude of ways of which nothing works out can manifest for us. And it's not just the thoughts. It's not just then the belief systems. It is that deep truth of knowing in heart space that nothing works out for me. And a lot of the knowledge that we've been tuned with, again, comes from childhood. So we're only going to get what we already have. So what does that manifestation mean to you? What would it allow you to experience? You can give yourself that experience right now. And furthermore, when you come to silence, when you visualize, when you are entering a space of imagination, that is a real field. That is actually happening. That's not, I imagine things and then I'm waiting for it. That is the space of creation. That is the void. That is the womb. That is when we become conscious and when we intentionally attune our focus to a specific outcome and charge that with tones of emotional resonance, meaning feeling the joy, feeling the peace, feeling the freedom, feeling the ease, that on a consistent basis, not with detaching, not with I need it to happen. I need to see it out here, because when you start fixating on the fact it's not out there, one, now you're in a state of separation because you're depending on a specific outcome. You're depending on a specific outcome because you feel as though if I don't see it, it's not happening. If it's not happening, oh God, what did I do wrong? Now I'm in fear. Now I'm in lack. So it's not about seeing it out there. It's not that it won't come, but it's trust. It's knowing that it is. Like think about, some of the negative shit you believe. If you know nobody likes me, you feel like you know it. You feel like I've been working in the field of mental wellness for 6 years. And so, since I got out of graduate studies and all that. And when somebody knows they're not worthy, they know it. They know it. Think about the negative shit you think. You have documents, evidence, receipts, screenshots, a whole book, a book of evidence as to why you're unworthy. You have that time that you screwed up in 7th grade. You have that partner that left you in 9th grade. You have that time the teacher made fun of you in 11th grade. You had that time you failed in gym class. You had that time that you fell asleep in an inappropriate place, and people made fun of you for it. You had that time that you got fired, and you have a whole, it seems to be a knowing in your heart. It is charged with emotions of inadequacy. It is backed by several systems of belief. And it is then now the material reality that you see every time. It seems like everywhere you go, there's more evidence as to like why I'm not good enough. Well, it works the same way in the other direction. It's not that knowledge is the total complete. There's nothing here on this 3D plane that is the total complete end all be all. Obviously, all of the parts contain the whole, and all of the whole is made out of parts. So there's nothing here that is totally 100% the absolute, immovable, permanent, absolute truth. But we can assign a truth to ourselves and see it manifest before us, then use that evidence as validation for what we believe, and keep drawing that feedback loop into the self and out of the self to where it seems to be an immutable, permanent truth. So you just want to do that with stuff like you want to begin to give yourself. So to sit with yourself, to sit in silence, to meditate, not just to visualize about having the material thing, but what type of emotional experience with that material thing? Again, as I always talk about, it comes down to freedom, peace, abundance, joy, and clarity. If you can't give those experiences, you can give them to yourself anytime. You can give yourself the experience of peace and of freedom. Immediately after this video, go to a quiet space, close your eyes, and meditate on peace. Now, if you're a beginner in this process, probably what you're going to experience initially is not peace. It's going to be all those racing thoughts. And that's fine too. It's about tuning yourself. It's about becoming more familiar with the space and sense of self, the kingdom within. The kingdom is your imagination. The kingdom is the womb. The kingdom is the void. The kingdom is a creation space of all things that we have immediate access to at any point in time. Yet we don't give ourselves access because we're busy watching TV, because we're busy scrolling, because we're busy watching YouTube, because we're busy trying to figure things out. We're busy trying to figure out how do we be better than the unworthiness and the inadequacy and the broken feelings that inform my everyday experience unconsciously. How do oh gosh, there's this thing on the news and I was talking about sick dogs. It seems like everybody I know has a sick fucking dog. Oh gosh, Fluffy needs to go to the dog hospital to get his heartworm pills. I mean, we have all of these different things that distract us from the fact that everything, the totality of all things, is available within us right here, right now. Your mind is a space of creation. So you give yourself more and more opportunities to experience that peace, freedom, love, joy, and clarity. And then the affirmations of the specific desire itself, and then bringing that in with visual imagery of what the specific manifestation is. And knowing that it's done, knowing that it's already here, knowing that in the space of my imagination, in the realm of creation, in the kingdom within, it's already done. It's already here. It is already complete because I am God. I'm not waiting on the circumstance to show me I'm God. I'm not waiting on the text from the SP. I'm not waiting for the job. It's already done. I already have it. I've given that experience to myself, and I trust that it's here and it is informing my field of presence. Because I am God, and I know that. Be still and know that I am God. I know that I am God. I am a conscious creator. I wait on nothing. Try that. You will only get what you already have. Life gives you that which you have already given yourself. So you stop waiting on the experiences. You stop waiting on the circumstances. You stop waiting on the people. You stop waiting on the call, and you give that to yourself with certainty, with feeling, with immersion on a consistent basis, not on a consistent basis because you're afraid of it not happening, but on a consistent basis because this is now the life that you live. You're entitled to that. Why would God be broke? Why would God be waiting? Why would God be in lack? Why would God be upset about anything? It doesn't mean you don't have different reactions to things. I'm not saying you have to be a perfect automaton. But why would God stay in a state of fear? If God knows God is the creation and the origin space of all things, as you are an individualized expression of that source consciousness, what is there to be afraid of? There's everything to be afraid of if I'm creating products of fear in my environment by charging that fear with the emotion of uncertainty and confusion, and then attaching belief systems that tell me I have something to be afraid of. Well, now there's everything to be afraid of. But I gave that to myself first. That's what it is. So with that, signing off of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute, my name is Lucien Francois Mateo St. James. I'm a spiritual epidemiologist. This message is brought to you by and is courtesy of the Electric Temple. Thank you for co-creating this moment with me and tuning in. Remember to be good to yourselves and others, because everybody is just a version of you anyway. Until next time.